Sorry about the truncated chat there, but one of the reasons why we've done that is because our next speaker doesn't have a huge amount of time with us, and we really want to hear from him. It's not going to be as a fireside chat as I billed it originally. It's going to be a talk from a man who really knows how to talk. I'll just introduce him. I think we first met decades ago when he was, what's the best way of describing him? A disruptive BBC producer. That's right. The kind of guy who, when he walks into a BBC meeting, they go, "Oh, who's this?" He was born of Caribbean stock and blessed with an entrepreneurial spirit. And he's had one of the most varied careers you can imagine, moving from TV to politics and then to business, driven by a desire to do better. He's tough too, taking serious illness with the same determination as he has every other obstacle in his life. Before we meet Wilfred Emmanuel Jones on this stage, aka the Black Farmer, let's run a clip or two of him.
People like my parents came to this country in the 50s, and they, in my parents' case, they went to live in Birmingham. And the important thing I like to tell people is this: to be here in this country in the first place is a demonstration that our parents were entrepreneurial. I mean, it's very, very entrepreneurial to leave your country of origin, leave everything that you know, all your friends, all your anchors of survival, to leave that behind, to go to a foreign country to advance your life, and not just your life, but the life of your children.
Be very, very warm in your applause and your welcome for Wilfred Emmanuel Jones, the Black Farmer.
What is it? It's still morning. Good morning, everybody. I prefer to talk rather than use the microphone, so it's very important that everybody can hear me at the back. Yeah, good. Right, so what I want to do, I think I've got about 20 minutes really, is to tell you my story, how I created the Black Farmer brand, and really my ideas about entrepreneurialism. So if I go right back to the beginning, I was actually born in Jamaica. In fact, I was born in a place called Frankfield, Clarendon. So I don't know if there's any Jamaicans in the room here.
You're not mic'd up, which means when you walk around, we don't get the full boom of your baritone voice. 1, 2. So maybe you take the mic and use Bonsu microphone technique.
Yeah, so I was saying that I was born in Frankfield, Clarendon. And you all know the story. People like my parents came to this country. I was left behind to be brought up with my relatives, and then I joined them 4 or 5 years later. And I was actually brought up in a place in Birmingham. Now, actually, before I say this next bit here, is anybody here from Birmingham? Oh, shit. Well, the part of Birmingham that I'm from is a place called Small Heath. And Small Heath is a shithole, basically. I mean, it's one of those classic inner city areas that's devoid of hope, devoid of opportunities. It is the bloody pits. Now, I'm from a family of 11, so I want you to picture the scene. I've got 8 brothers and sisters. There's 11 of us living in a 2-up, 2-down terrace house. So you can imagine it was very, very cramped, and we were poor. I knew what it was like to be hungry. I used to watch my mother try and feed all 11 of us with 1 chicken. And it's not these chickens you get from Tesco's now. It's those old boiler chickens that they basically, you have to cook for fucking days to be able to get them to taste tender. Now, as a way of supplementing the family income, my father had an allotment, and as the oldest boy, it was my job to look after this allotment. And this is where my story starts, because I could remember being in this space and absolutely loving it. That allotment really was a bit of an oasis for me. And I remember, and this is really important, and I say this too, especially when I go and do talks at schools, I say to young people, because I can remember as an 11-year-old boy, I made myself a promise that one day I would like to own my own farm. I lodged that into the back of my mind, and then every single thing that I actually did in my life was to get into position to buy that farm. So it's very, very, very important. If you were an American audience and we talked about having the audacity to dream and think big, they really understand that as a concept. Because we're British, we tend to be a lot more reserved, but you will never, ever achieve anything unless you have the courage to put it out there, because it will not come your way if you take that first step and put it out there. I'm going to tell you how I did it, but you'll see that my story is about being audacious, being bold, because that is how you will get things done. So I went to, they were called secondary moderns then. I went to the local secondary modern school in Birmingham, and this school was as much as a shithole as a place that I sort of lived in. The teachers hating me there, the kids hating me there. It was a mess. It was a pit. And they didn't really educate us. They policed us, really, because they didn't think that, black people were going to achieve anything. So actually, they just decided just to tick the box to say these people attended school. It was a nightmare. And to make it even worse, I am dyslexic. And in those days, and probably still the case today, if you're dyslexic, a lot of people do not actually understand it. And they just think, how could this person not really understand the basics in life? What I've actually subsequently realized is dyslexia is a gift, because you have to program yourself to think outside the box. You're an outsider. One of the greatest advantages about being innovative is having the mindset of an outsider. That's how you innovate, because you've got to come up with interesting ways of actually solving a problem. So I left school at 16. I could hardly read and write. I wanted to get away from home because, 3 to a bed ain't that bloody comfortable. And because I was as thick as shit, really, there wasn't really much else that I could do. And so I joined the army. Now, if you're black and you're mouthy and you join the army, there's one or two things are going to happen. You're either going to shut the fuck up and do as you're told, or you're going to get your head kicked in. And so, they spent about a year trying to lick me into shape, and they did some fucking atrocious things, They were pretty awful people. And then, so I got kicked out of the army. So the only qualification that I have to my name, the only qualification is a dishonorable discharge from the army. So I'm 18 years old, and everything you could predict, they say, would happen to a black person, I seem to be going down that sort of route. And what was quite interesting, actually, in those days, if you were a failure at everything, what they thought was stick them into catering, because catering is now quite a glamorous profession. In those days, it wasn't. It was all the idiots that went into catering. So I went to the local catering college in Birmingham, and luckily, I liked it. So I then went on and worked to be a chef, and it wasn't any glamorous hotels or anything like that. It was flipping burgers and all that sort of stuff. Now, this is another important part of my story. I can remember that at the time, there used to be a really famous BBC documentary series on called 40 Minutes. And I used to love this series. And I can remember saying to all of my family and friends, you know what? I want to go and work in television as a producer, director, making documentaries. And you can imagine, they just thought, this guy's nuts, basically, because he's got no education. Television at that time, there were people at Oxbridge, like Henry. So people were pretty educated. So somebody, people from my background, it was a totally impossibility. Now, I have lived my life with these two principles. And any successful person that you will ever meet, they will be successful because of these two principles. It doesn't matter on your background. It doesn't matter your color of your skin. It doesn't matter in your education. There's only two things that you need to be successful. The first thing is that you need to be ruthlessly focused. And what I mean by that, you're able to get rid of the white noise of living. When you look at your lives, you will see that your lives are full of shite, things that really do not matter. And the only time in a lot of people's lives they get to that point of realization is when they're ill, when they're on death's door, when actually all the things that are irrelevant gets filtered out and you're able to focus on the single things that matter. Focus, focus, focus is the first thing. The second thing, and this is way, way more important than the first, is that you have to have passion. And the reason why you have to have passion is because passion defies logic. It doesn't make sense. People say to me, what do you mean by passion? I said, have you ever seen somebody when they're in love? They do fucking crazy things. They do things that do not make sense. They are driven to do things. And that is the essential tool that you need. Because what also passion does, it helps you get over all of the hurdles because you don't see it. You're driven, you're driven, you're driven. So you need to have focus and you need to have passion. So taking those principles and deciding I wanted to get into the BBC, so I thought, right. So I did all the stuff that people normally do. I got a copy of the Radio Times. I wrote to every single producer, director in that publication. Not one of those bastards got back to me. Nobody wrote back to me. I picked up the phone, I tried to ring them. None of them actually would answer my call. And this is about about being able to think outside the box. At the time, I was living in Birmingham and BBC Pebbermill. So I went to BBC Pebbermill Studios, and they used to have security guards who would let people in and out of the building. And these security guards had huts that they would go and sort of keep warm in. And they used to hate having to go in and out of these huts to lift up the barriers because they were manual in those days. So I went up to the security guards and says, look, I'll open the barriers for you. And they said, well, shit, if he's prepared to do it for nothing, let him do it. So for months, I'm there lifting this fucking barrier up and down. Good morning, sir. Good afternoon, sir. All that stuff, just so I could get close to the building. From there, I met the cleaners who were going in to clean the offices. So I'd say, can I then come and help clean the offices with you? And they said, again, for nothing, come along and do it. And then this happened. I can remember meeting a guy, and I still remember his name to the day. His name was Jock Gallagher. This is a very, very senior executive at the BBC. And I can remember saying to him, oh, look, I really want to get into television. And he said to me, come up to his office. And I went to his office, and he spoke to me for about an hour. And he says, look, you are not the type of person that we tend to employ in television because you don't have the education and you've got a bit of an attitude problem. And he said, but I'll do this. He said, it's something, he said, I might live to regret, but I will do this. He said, I will give you a job as a runner, which means you do all the shite, for 3 months and to see what happens. Now that man, having the courage to give me that break, then started off a long career in television. One of the most important things, again, to be successful, is to find your guardian angels. Find your guardian angels. Everything that I've ever achieved, somebody has gone out of their way to give me a break, because you'll never do it on your own. And you're not going to find that guardian angel unless you put it out there. Tell them that's what you want to do. So many people have an idea and they think the idea is going to put it out there. That man gave me a break. One of the things I hate is fucking human resources, because human resources, they filter people like me out. They filter it out. It's people who want to try and give somebody a break. Who was going to give me a clap then? Clap. So I started off as a runner. I then went on to be a researcher. I then went on to be a producer. Now, older members in this audience may remember that at the time there used to be a very famous a program called the Food and Drink Program, and that was a program that really launched the celebrity chef culture. And my boss at the time, another guardian angel, his name is Peter Bazalgette, Henry probably knows him, he really stood by me when a lot of people wanted to get rid of me. He really stood by me. And it was my job, he made it my job to break in all of these people who are now big name celebrity chefs. So I gave Gordon Ramsay his first break in television. I can remember Gordon Ramsay having to come to my house so I could teach him how to perform in front of the camera. because in those days we used to shoot film, not videos, and film was very, very expensive. And so people had to really learn what to say, because one roll of film was 100 quid. So I had to teach these guys, him, James Martin, most of the big name celebrity chefs. It was my job to break them in. And the reason why it was my job is because my boss knew at the time that, these guys, people like Gordon, they're hard bastards. They're not taking a shit from anybody. And all the Oxbridge types were quite intimidated by them. And so, because these guys would take you outside to sort a problem out. And my boss, knew that I was the sort of person that would oblige, basically. So, many a times I would basically say, I'm fucking in charge, shut the fuck up, do what I say, and do that. So some fantastic stories I could tell you when I was a producer director, but I had a reputation, I was a hard bastard to make sure I made the film. So I traveled the world making programs about food and drink. And I was at the BBC for about 14 years. Now, why it's very, very important to have a dream. If you don't have a dream, you could be quite easily sidetracked, because you would think, this is a guy from the gutter, he's at the BBC, having what is a particularly glamorous life. You would think the thing to do is shut the fuck up, keep your head down, and thank your lucky stars that you've managed to rise up. The moment you do that in life, the moment you stand still and you get satisfied, life will just pass you by. Then one of my great heroes, Steve Jobs, says, stay hungry. Stay hungry. Never ever think that everything is going to stay the way it is. You've got to have the courage to basically keep pushing yourself. And the only way you're going to push yourself is if you have a dream to follow. What is your purpose? What is your dream? And so every time I was getting comfortable, I wanted to settle, that dream would come and say, well, boy, at 11 years old, you said you want to buy your farm. The BBC is pretty glamorous, but you're never going to make enough money to buy your farm. You're going to have the courage to go and do something else. So I decided that I would leave the BBC, all the security that you could think of, and then set up my own business, to set up my own food and drink business. Now, most people, and all of you in the audience may be this type of person as well, most people have a great idea of what they would love to do. The world is full of tons of bloody ideas, got a great idea. And the one thing that stops them from actually going ahead to achieve that idea is fear. Fear of what could possibly happen. Fear, they confuse themselves with all these potential possibilities. Fear is not real. It's a construct of things that we think may or may not, but you do not know. One of the things I want to say to people is this: if you're interested in what I've had to say, there's a book that I've written called Jeopardy: The Danger of Playing It Safe. And the most important way of actually managing fear is this, is that a lot of people think that there's such a thing as certainty. The only thing that's certain in life is that life is uncertain. And what you just need to do is, I say, put your arms around uncertainty, walk forward into the future, and says, I may not know what I'm going to actually meet, but whatever I meet, I will find a way to deal with it. Do not think you need to know the answers in order to go forward. Go forward not knowing, but having the confidence in self that you will find a way when the problem actually comes to you. So I remember when I left the BBC, I only had enough money to pay my mortgage for 3 months. After that, I would have run out of money. No clients, nothing. But there's nothing that focuses the mind more than actually knowing that you've only got 3 months to pay the mortgage. Absolutely focus. Back to that thing about focus, focus, focus. And again, by putting it out there, the right people find you. They really come to you. And I can remember the clients that we had, because when I launched my food and drink marketing agency, we launched brands like Lloyd Gross and Sauces, Plymouth Gin, Cobra Beer. They're big brands now, but back in the day, they were small brands, and they would also identify with the sort of mindset that I had. I had that business for 15 years, and then that gave me the money to buy my farm. So I say to young people especially, dream fucking early, because actually it takes a long time to achieve your dreams. You know. Yeah. And life is not, we live in an age where people think it's a sprint, it's instant. It's not, it's a marathon. Prepare yourself for the marathon. Toughen up, it's a street fight. And if you've got that sort of mindset, whatever problems that come along, you're expecting them, you're not surprised because you know it's a tough journey to achieve them. So I decided to buy my farm down in Devon, because I used to go there on a holiday. And my farm is near a place called Launceston, or as they say, Lanston, as they say down there. And one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at this farm was this massive gap between urban and rural Britain. I can remember saying to all of my friends here up in London when I said, look, I'm going to buy a farm down in Devon. They went, whoa, don't they lynch black people down there? And then all the white people there thought, what the fuck's going on? A black guy coming to buy a farm. This is a true story. I can remember when I put up my first polytunnel, somebody had called the police out because they thought it was a cover for growing ganja. So when you're a change maker, it confuses people because most people live in stereotypes in order to exist. When you're a change maker, you can't allow any of that to sort of dissuade you. But also, I was saying earlier on, it's the outsiders who see the opportunity. Because when I saw this massive bridge, because white urban Britain hates rural urban Britain as each other, so there's this real misunderstanding. I thought, there is an opportunity to create a brand that will be a bridge. And also what I wanted to do was I deliberately wanted to create a purpose-driven brand. Didn't care what I sold, it needed to be purpose-driven, it needed to make a difference. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to create a brand, and this is also what's really important, especially for black people in this audience, is that I thought, I want to have a brand that is mainstream, because that is where the money is, that is where the volume is. All too often, if you're black, they want to pigeonhole you and put you into a small sector. Resist that like fucking mad, because actually it's hard and there's not much money. So I deliberately wanted to do something that was mainstream. So I was scratching my head thinking, what is it that's mainstream? And I thought, well, you can't get anything more mainstream than a sausage, Everybody likes a goddamn sausage. So I decided, right, I'm going to do a sausage. And I found a manufacturer, because people, you find the right people, they're prepared to give you a break. I found a manufacturer that I would develop this sausage with. And then I was trying to find a gap. Trying to find these gaps in the markets is really difficult. And the gap that I found at the time is that 1 in 100 people had some sort of wheat intolerance. So that's why I said, right, we'll be a gluten-free sausage. And that's what we'll go for. So I developed the sausage, and then having developed it, I thought, well, I've got to come up with a brand name, and people spend millions trying to come up with the right brand name. And I spent months trying to think of this, and then suddenly it came to me. All of my next door neighbors down at Devon used to call me the Black Farmer. And I thought, shit, that's a pretty good brand name. Not only is it a really good brand name, there's no one else out there that can nick the idea. And it has an edge. It has an edge. People go, whoa, can you say that? Is that politically correct? And the art of marketing is that moment, that double take moment. If you're looking for approval, it's wrong. It's got to be, whoa, could you do that? Even I was slightly a bit worried about this. And this is what I did. And this is a lesson to all of you here. I decided, look, the sensible thing to do is to go out and get research this name, The Black Farmer. So I did all the classic research. And the research came back and says, do not call it The Black Farmer, because it will offend and upset people. And the lesson is this. Research will tell you what people were thinking yesterday. Research will tell you what people are thinking today. But research cannot tell you what people are thinking tomorrow, okay? That's why you need to have your own vision, your own purpose, to have the courage to be bold and step forward, and then other people would follow. So you can imagine, I thought, I'm going to call it The Black Farmer. So I went ahead with The Black Farmer, and then trying to sell this into the supermarkets. What was really interesting in listening to some of the talks earlier on today is the challenge of the moment you're black and you're going to do something. It's a nightmare. For most people trying to sell in the supermarkets, it's a real nightmare. I can remember going in to see all the big supermarkets with these sausages, and you see the buyers, and they're looking at these sausages, And they're going, well, I don't understand these sausages. Are these sausages for black people? You know? because they associate blacks by being only a certain section. So the amount of battles that I had with people who just couldn't understand black person, sausages, it just didn't equate. Now, when I launched my brand, I launched it at a really good, because about 18 years the brand's been existing. When I launched, it was just at the start of the social media revolution. Facebook had just started. Things like Twitter didn't exist. Things like we now Instagram, none of those existed. But the social revolution meant this, is that whereas in the past you had to go through what I call the gatekeepers, i.e. TV, newspapers and magazines, in order to communicate your message to the consumer, social media meant you could actually communicate with those people directly. So when all the supermarkets said no, when you're starting off in business as well, this is really important. A lot of people fail in business because they take the same attitude that you have in a corporate structure and they put it in a startup structure. You will fail. It's a bit of a street fight when you're a startup. Everybody wants to fucking kill you. So that's what you want to, that's what you need to realize, is that don't think that you have the same principles in corporate and it works in a startup. It doesn't. It's a fight, especially for those first 3 years. It's a fight. And you've got to be maverick. You've got to really do things that a corporate could never get away with. So I can remember, right, these bastards said no, they didn't want my sausages. So I thought, right, I'm going to go around the country and doing massive sampling programs, because I knew that the only people that the supermarkets fear are the consumers. And so at the time, what I did I had a website. I put all the names of all the buyers, their names, their addresses on this website. And I went round and I did sampling, and people loved these sausages. And I says, if they love the sausage, I says, look, do me a big favor. Could you just go on to my website? You see the names of the buyers there, and email directly to them and says, why aren't you listing these products? And as God is my witness, that's how I got my listings. I can remember when Waitrose, and here's another story. This is how brutal you got to be. This is how you got to be a street fighter. Because I can remember when I developed these products, they were developed specifically going to Waitrose. The irony was, as they was the first people to list this, and for years, bloody Waitrose was resisting. So I had a meeting with them. And I says, right, if you don't list these sausages, I'm simply going to take an ad out that says Waitrose refuses the black farmer. They listed the sausages. Okay. So part of what I'm trying to say is this, is that you have to, it's tough for everybody, but being black, it's even tougher. It is even tougher, because as what we were saying earlier on, it's not in the mindset that black people are in business. One of the reasons why I wanted to call the brand The Black Farmer, it's in your face that it's black. You'd be really amazed that today, people don't realize the black farmer is actually black. They don't. And they said, oh, now I know why it's called the black farmer. And that's because people's perceptions of a black successful business, could it be sort of black? And that's why it's there. I can remember when I'm out doing shows and I'm listening to people having conversations with each other. And there's one conversation I heard this woman saying to her friend, oh, I'm at the black farmer stand. And her friend nudges her and says, oh, you can't say that. So just using the word black for a lot of people is a bit sort of controversial. So it's a long way for us to go for people to see that black is very, very much part of the mainstream. The brand is very, very successful now. We turn over about 10 million. We're in all of the supermarkets. What is... We've really got to the place where we're even the likes of Marks and Spencer's. Marks and Spencer's do not take brands. One of the things I want you all to do, we've just launched something called the Carnival Sausage, and we'll be the first brand that you will go out and see there, and there's a black person right on the front of the package, okay? That doesn't exist normally. So that was launched a week ago. Marks and Spencer's are starting to list that. But one of the things within the food sector, when you think of where you go and do your shopping, you're spending your money, spend your money with those supermarkets who are actually doing things to be more diverse and integrated. I just want to finish off by saying this. I run something called The Hatchery now, And the reason why I run something called the Hatchery is that a lot of people come to me with ideas of businesses, especially within the food and drink arena, that they would like to do, and they find it really, really difficult. So if I like the idea, they could then be part of the Hatchery, and then I will pay them to work for the Black Farmer whilst we're developing their ideas. And we've got some really good successes at the moment. The first guy that came to me was a guy called Shagan, and we launched a brand called the Jim Kitchen. And for 3 years, we battled away to get that. Now that brand, after about 3 years, is about a £6 million brand, and that's in the likes of Sainsbury's, Co-op, Asda. Really well done, that brand. And there's another one called Smorgasbord, which is all about Swedish meatballs. Again, the same sort of principle. In fact, the guy came to me for a job. And I says, no, I won't give you a job, but we'll create this brand together. We created this brand, and that's now in all the supermarkets. So part of what I want to do is to tell my story. And so, because all too often people look at me and they think, actually, this guy's from some sort of privileged background because he speaks posh, but I put that on, basically. I'm a street boy. That is sort of done well to tell you how tough that sort of journey is, and that the way that we need to do is to go out there and inspire and help each other, because the more of us that will be successful, it will be sending a great message to the rest of society. Thank you.